Hello, welcome everyone. This is Andre's Restart, and tonight we're gonna focus on Zelda. But whatever you bring up in the chat, given that it is a Q&A, I will try to discuss it. But yeah, as the title suggests, it kind of feels like Zelda news has been picking up lately, and so we're gonna talk a little bit about the news that's popped up, the news that might be popping up, and kind of just like the overall direction of Zelda. There are some things I'd like to point out, and so yeah, that's the general plan. I got Zelda stuff in mind. I plan on, as a thumbnail may be hinting at, I do plan on kind of talking a little bit about Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD. No, I don't know anything in terms of like inside knowledge. It's speculation, right? So let me make that clear, right? But I'm speculating, and sometimes speculation can be right. It's happened before. It may happen again. Yeah, so there's gonna be a little bit of that. There's gonna be a little bit of Ocarina of Time remake stuff. Just something that's kind of a bit of a follow up to the video I put out. Last Sunday, right? So not even a week ago. Some stuff popped up there that I counter arguments that people thought they were doing a good job of countering that weren't actually countering, and I have indisputable proof for it. So I kind of just want to show that to the world. And I'm probably going to show it to the world several times because a lot of people are like, oh, nope, you're wrong. And I'm like, I don't think so. And then I found something that, like, you got to really jump through some serious hoops to not believe this thing once you see this. What am I getting at? Stay tuned. I'll probably maybe I'll even touch on that first because that's a little bit of a cliffhanger, right? But yeah, that stuff is kind of like the plan, like the Zelda offerings. We did have there's actually several things. We had the Zelda Lego stuff, Zelda concert stuff, and Anuma and Miyamoto have been have been spotted at Super Nintendo World. On note of sponsoring, the reason that's on my mind, I got a couple sponsors lined up. I'm not sure how much you guys care about that necessarily. Well, I mean, I think it matters, right? Because sometimes, depending on what it is, there could be certain advantages for people who watch. And there's a particular sponsor that I was working on today, like putting together a video, right? So, like, typically how I do sponsors, I'll put it at the beginning of the video, like a minute to 2 minute video, like integration and talking about what the sponsor is to start the video. I put timestamps, so for those out there like, oh, how dare you put advertising in the beginning? It's in the beginning of the video, and you can skip it. There are literally chapters for the video, right? But the thing that I'm working on, I'm not going to say it because it's not public yet, but the thing I'm working on, I think a lot of you watching who are into video games, that are passionate about video games, you're going to see this. And I think for some of you, it's going to resonate. So I think it's actually going to be pretty cool. And it may even be a long-term partner. So the opportunity will exist for a good while. So you'll see when that comes out. It's going to be soon. Hopefully, like maybe this Sunday soon, or if not this Monday soon, you'll see that pop up. But anyways, I brought it up one because of the slip up, but also two, I was like 2 or 3 minutes late. I was like, it's like 7:30, but like I'm at a point where I could probably get in a lot of B-roll for this now and be almost done before the night is over. So because I want to get it out before I go to bed today. I didn't sleep much, and yeah, so I did put out the video today, right? That took a decent amount of time. Then there's a live stream, and then I'm working on this integration, right? So it's kind of like these different things have me busy. But anyways, YouTube whatnot stuff all out of the way because I know not a lot of you care about that. Hello, how are you? Let me know how everything looks and sounds, guys. By the way, I would really appreciate it. I want to make sure everything sounds okay, everything looks okay. But let's start checking in with the chat. Toon Link, oh, thank God, yes. Oh, I hope so. Instinctive 30, it would certainly be nice if these two games just finally came to the Switch. This is in reference to Wind Waker Twilight Princess. Yeah, I want it to finally happen. Karen Buckley, I saw you were here earlier. Sky Swords Alyssa, I saw you were here earlier. It's a drib. It's a drib. It's a dribich. I'm saying it weird on purpose. Yes, please. We need Twilight Princess on the Switch. Hello there, Joseph Carnes. The legendary Nintendo Brothers 2.0 Zelda Ocarina of Time. Let's go. I know it's Mario, but yeah, I still believe in the Ocarina of Time remake. As time progresses, I only start to believe it more and more. Yeah. So it's interesting because, you know, I pay attention to comments, and if you guys watch the videos, and you'll probably see me respond to some comments, right? Two things I want to speak on with this. One, I do feel that I have a little bit of a problem with responding to negative comments. And when I say that, it's not is it possible that there are times where maybe the negative comment upsets me a little bit, and perhaps I come at somebody maybe a little bit too aggressive? I don't think I'm overboard, but I definitely think I could probably temper that a little bit. But I more so bring this up because there's a lot of positive comments, right? A lot of you guys say such nice things. And I do try and I do read all of the comments, just for the record. I read all the comments, or I try to read all the comments. And I can't respond to everyone, not reasonably, right? But I do see them, and I try to at least leave a heart, if I to acknowledge, like, hey, I saw this, right? And sometimes I'll even heart things I don't necessarily agree with, just because I appreciate the spirit of it, right? For what it is, if it's be it a compliment or just like a point, right? It doesn't even have to be a compliment, but like, people can make arguments. Even if I don't agree with the argument, doesn't mean it's not a good argument, right? So, I just want to acknowledge, right, for those here that are on the live stream, right? I feel like people who watch the live stream are definitely, typically bigger supporters than those who don't. And so I just want to say thank you all, right? I appreciate it. I do see the positive comments. I do see you guys defending me sometimes too. So I really do appreciate it. I think sometimes I don't do a good job of acknowledging the support. So please, I really do appreciate it. But something else, right? Going back to the negative comments. Sometimes people will say things, and I'm like, I mean, I think that's just wrong, right? And I'm not talking about people's opinions on subjects, because debate is fine. I encourage debate, but people will say things like, "Oh, you're really stretching that, right?" Or like, you're just kind of like believing whatever you want." And I'm like, but I don't think that's fair, right? And obviously, everyone can believe whatever they want, and so the reason I bring this up, I'm getting to the Ocarina of Time thing, right? This is a long sort of thing to that. But sometimes people they'll make certain arguments, make certain accusations, and I can't always prove or deny anything, right? But what's interesting is that with some of the things we speculate on, and we talk about possibilities, right? I try not to make assumptions, right? There are things that I think are more likely than not, but that's just kind of how it is. But as time progresses, some things seem to become increasingly more likely, right? So like today, we put out the video with all the Nintendo Switch 2 news, right? And so it's not just about the Bloomberg report, it's beyond that, because we also got a rumor from Nash Weedle that suggests enhanced backwards compatibility of this marketing campaign behind Switch 2 about showcasing improved visuals with your catalog. So that's exciting stuff. But we also, and when I say we, I mean it's a collective Nintendo community, right? It was actually, I saw it from the 10 leaks, but there was a discovery for this advertising that we saw from Nintendo Hong Kong. The Nintendo Live event there was a trailer for it, and in the trailer you see the colored buttons, the ABXY from Super Famicom. Like that's in official Nintendo promotional material this year for an event that was this year. And so what's really interesting about that, right, is that there's been this back and forth about, oh, will the Switch 2 have the colored buttons or not, right? Because we've seen games come up starting in 2023. It hasn't happened any year beforehand of these games popping up with that. And so when this discussion has popped up, people say, oh, no, you're reaching. That's just a coincidence, right? Even though it's never happened before, right? And so now we have promotional material coming out from Nintendo with the Super Famicom ABXY buttons, but we're talking about the Switch platform, right? We're advertising current modern Nintendo. And so it's very interesting. Why is this happening? It doesn't necessarily mean 100% that Switch 2 will have the colored buttons, but it's another point in its favor, and it's becoming more of a, oh, this is just a random coincidence, as opposed to, no, there was a shift in Nintendo in marketing and branding that includes the colored buttons. Not the basic white or gray, right, as they've done throughout every Switch game leading up until 2023. And so there's been a shift, right? And so I bring that up because even in relation to Zelda, right, this Ocarina of Time remake theory, right, there are rumors, but to me it's a theory because the rumors don't hold a lot of weight, but they seem to hold weight because I think there's a really good theory behind it, right? And so as time progresses, I feel like if we're right about this theory, right, we're going to see more and more things pop up that seem to support this idea. And so we'll see how things go, but for example, there is the Zelda Lego set, right? The Zelda Lego set was leaked a bit ago, but apparently the Lego set's supposed to include a Breath of the Wild version of the Deku Tree and an Ocarina of Time version of the Deku Tree, right? So we'll see how that actually looks when it's finally released and announced, right? But that could be a sign that Nintendo wants to keep Ocarina of Time relevant to the modern gamer, even though that game came out in 1998. Even though we have an interview, for, what was it, Next Level Dreams, or no, I think it was Nintendo Dream Magazine. It's a Japanese article where Aonuma, it references the character, not the town, not the town from Zelda 2, Rauru, but the actual character. If you look at the interview, they're talking about a character, and Aonuma talks about how he doesn't think Zelda fans really know who that person is anymore. And so, if the producer of the Zelda series doesn't think Zelda fans would know who Rauru is today, that suggests that he doesn't think Ocarina of Time is relevant enough to be like something celebrated right now. This is where I'm arguing, making the argument, right? So if he's saying stuff like that, he doesn't think a lot of people know about it. So then why would Nintendo put out a Lego set or agree to put a Lego set with Lego that has to do with Ocarina of Time? It's curious, right? So we'll see. Hasn't been revealed yet. It's been leaked, right? Literally last year, I believe, multiple content creators saw this Lego set leak the image. They put it in their videos. Videos were taken down, right? Like Lego, they're even more serious than Nintendo. It's crazy. So that's how it's been. But recently, we have a new rumor that it's slated for September 2024. This Zelda Lego set of the Deku Tree, and so that's really interesting, right? That's kind of part of the Zelda news right now. It's a rumor, but it's probably true because it's already been leaked, and this person has a really good track record. Anyways, that's kind of like the trail, like just I kind of present that because as information may come out, different things we'll start to see that may start to support our theories more, right? And so I want to go back to the Ocarina of Time remake argument, right? The video I put out on Sunday. I'm gonna get to the chat, right? But I found myself going down this direction, and so I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it now. There was an argument that I made in the video that Ocarina of Time 3D is a remaster, not a remake. And so the reason I bring this up is because a lot of people try to counter this theory of Ocarina of Time remake happening because they say, well, they already remade it. And so in the Sunday video, one thing I brought up was this Iwata Asks that came out back when Ocarina of Time 3D was coming out. There was an interview between Iwata and Aonuma and the Grezzo team. And I shared a segment of that Q&A that talked about them building off the source code, exchanging ROMs. And to me, that language definitely suggested that they're building off the source code, right? And so, like, if you look at how developers describe remasters, that's how it is. You're building off the source code, right? So, for example, Metroid Prime Remastered is considered a remaster because they're using the same original code from the Nintendo GameCube. They simply enhanced and built upon it. Its foundation is still the same core experience, even though they literally created new art to create the new visuals of the game, right? It's still technically a remaster. And so I thought that was going to be compelling enough of an argument, but then a lot of people are like, nope, you're wrong. I wikied it. It says Ocarina of Time. First off, the internet doesn't understand the difference between a remaster and a remake, right? And wiki, you shouldn't just go on wiki and you see something and trust it. There has to be proper citation. If there's not proper citation, then it's not a good source. Some of you have gone to school, right? Or most of you, if not all of you, have gone to school. Has a teacher ever been okay with a wiki article? No, because that's not a good source of information. But anyways, what I put out in that video, I guess, was not enough to be convincing to convince enough people that Ocarina of Time 3D is a remaster, not a remake. And so there are several things I can go down talking about how this is definitely a 3D. The 3DS game is a remaster, not a remake. But I'm going to point out a couple little things, and I'm saving the big one for last. So something to keep in mind is that when we go back to that Aonuma interview, the Game Informer one, where he was asked about an Ocarina of Time remake, he could have said, "Oh, we already remade Ocarina of Time on Nintendo 3DS," except he didn't. He said no comment, right? And so he had an opportunity to clarify what it was, and he didn't, right? He didn't say, "Oh, well, we already remade the game." He didn't do that. He said no comment. And I'll also remind you guys that recently he was asked about a Zelda Dungeon Maker, and he shot that down, right? So not shutting down Ocarina of Time Remake is very interesting. It's one of our biggest points of evidence for this maybe happening. But let me just cut to the chase. Let me just, if you don't want to believe, how developers consider remasters, if you just look at something and you think, oh, it looks prettier, it has new content, that makes it a remake, it's more nuanced than that, right? But I'm just going to show you something that's just it pretty much just, it's a case closed scenario. Once you see this, you can't really argue with it. So have any of you ever actually taken a look at the back of the box art for Ocarina of Time 3D? What do you think it says? I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you right here. Where is... Oh, I have too many tabs open. I can't find where I was at. I have it. I just don't know where Streamyard is anymore. I can't find my streaming software. Oh, it's over here. It's on this side. That's why. Okay, here we go. Okay. Here, it literally says, experience Link's greatest adventure remastered in glorious 3D. The literal box art for Ocarina of Time 3D tells you it's a remaster. Case closed. It's not a remake, right? It has artifacts from the prior game. There's tons of glitches from the original game inside Ocarina of Time 3D. They built upon the original as a foundation, and so that is a remastering, enhancing the original work. A remake is starting something new from scratch. And so that's the difference. And so the argument that they've already remade Ocarina of Time does not apply, because they have not remade Ocarina of Time. They simply enhanced the original release. That's it. And so I'm curious what you guys make of that. I'm very curious. But now I cannot find the chat. I cannot find... I have just way too many tabs open. Where is... I'm just closing out tabs until I find the live stream. Where did it? Oh, there we go. Found it. Found it. Okay. There we go. What? I mean, of course. All right, looking here. Tank 7 to 10 million is very well. Yeah, Adam Rona, it's a remaster. It's literally on the box art. It's a remaster. There's Giancarlo, Adamy. Let's suppose this Ocarina of Time is real. Who's gonna develop it? It can't be ETB3. They're just busy on Switch successor. I think whoever would remake it, I think it'd be very similar to the Grezzo project, right? Where you find you would outsource it. There would still be Nintendo. It would be probably a co-development thing, right? Like the Zelda team would oversee it, right? Aonuma would oversee it, but it probably wouldn't just be one team. I don't think it'd be an EPD group. Rarely do you see EPD remake games. I would have to look at each EPD group in the history, but usually remakes, remasters are outsourced. So, Ronnie Fazio. So if we get Ocarina of Time remake, do you want the story to be its own thing, like Final Fantasy VII remake? Do I want? Yeah, I do want. I do want that. I would love it if they were to take the opportunity to kind of put something in there. I'm not saying something super explicit. You can still leave it up for interpretation and debate, but put a little something in there that speaks to the third timeline split, right? That would be interesting. How you go about doing that is a variety of things, and we'll dive deeper into that later into this stream. I don't want to spend too much time because I want to kind of get through the chat first because I haven't spent too much time on it. But yeah, I would like to see that. Right? I've also thrown out the idea of maybe, you know how like Sheik, we don't know like what happens, like when Sheik is not around. It would be cool if maybe they offered like some playable Sheik missions. That would be interesting, just to see like what Sheik does when Link is behind the scenes or when she's not around. Like what's she doing? That would be interesting. Maybe we can even find out where Princess Zelda and Impa ran off to when you were a kid, because they run off into Hyrule Field. And as a kid, I was like always like, all right, where did they go? Are they in the desert or are they in the lake? And I would actually explore, like hoping I would find some kind of clue as to where they went. But the world of Hyrule and Ocarina of Time depicts something like a pretty small environment, right? So it's not really realistic. And so seeing them remake the game to an extent where I'm not saying we have to have a lot of extra content, but maybe some extra content and just visually show representation for a vaster world. So you can kind of, it's easier to imagine that where they might have gone off to. That would be nice. Jens Van Brokoven. Remake is a different code. I agree. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a different code. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Caleb Bravo. Andres, I agree. The Ocarina of Time 3D is a remaster, but the box doesn't prove that. Crash says remaster. Link's Awakening says reimagined. FF7 says remake. Okay. I think part of me is like thinking, should I concede or should I not concede to that? It is true that we have seen branding being consistent across the board. That is true. I would argue that Nintendo branding has been pretty clear, but only more recently. If you go back to the past, I gotta take a deeper look into that. But I would say, like, so you ever notice, like, when Nintendo announces a game, like a remake of a game, they don't put any sort of like extra subtitle behind it, right? It's just that's the game, right? Like Super Mario RPG, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, for example, right? Link's Awakening, right? All those games, they didn't add anything else. They weren't, oh, it's Link's Awakening HD. They were just like, no, it's Link's Awakening. And so then you look at all the other games that have been remade, right? They haven't been. They've been remastered. Like you look at all the deluxe versions, you look at the Metro Prime Remastered, you look at the Definitive Edition of Xenoblade. Those are all remasters. They all have prior artifacts of the initial game, right? There's still that foundational original code that they built off of. So I think it's worth maybe doing a little bit more investigation into just like the history of Nintendo and how they branded things. Current Nintendo, their branding's pretty consistent. If it's just a name, it's a remake. If it's something else, it is probably a remaster. Something interesting, I was talking to Botox Games the other day, and some people believe that Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe is a remake. I've called it a remaster, and so now I want to do more investigation into that one, if maybe that's the situation where the branding is off. So, you know what, Caleb? I will concede that, you know what, you're right. It doesn't outright 100% prove that Ocarina of Time 3D is a remaster by putting remaster in the box. But it definitely strongly supports the idea. Like, if you were teetering, like, that has to, like, be, like, that's a really big, strong, heavy nail in the coffin for it's absolutely a remaster, right? But then I'll just reiterate some things I've already said. Literally, Onuma was asked about an Ocarina of Time remake. He had the opportunity to say, "Hey, we already remade the game." He did not, right? The game literally has artifacts from the initial game. We know they built off the code. That's the definition of a remaster. You want to go beyond that? The game literally has several glitches from the original release. That's more evidence that it's the original code. They're building off of that, right? So that's a remaster. You're enhancing, building off the original work, literally, like the original code. So it is a remaster. No one's going to 100% agree across the board, right? Yes, it has visual improvements, but if you look at side-by-side comparisons, a lot of the game is just kind of upscale with cleaned up textures, right? That's literally a remaster. Yes, there are new visual elements, right? Like they've updated a lot of the player models. They've updated a lot of the backgrounds, but there's still a lot there that is just an enhanced version of the original game. So if all of that and plus the back, right, is not enough, then I think there's like nothing. There's really nothing out there that can really, if someone wants to believe it's a remake, you can, but I think all the evidence is extremely compelling. The literal back of the game says it's a remaster. Like the official promotional material calls the game a remaster. The definition, like, so, you know, I will die on this hill. But I think I'm gonna live for a long time because that's just what it is. I see okay. Well, I got a few super chats here, so let's get to those real quick. All right. Nate Esquega has been a member for two straight years. Thank you for sticking around this time. Very much appreciate it. 2 years as a day one member. Keep growing. Hope to see 50K soon. Thank you, Nate. I very much appreciate that. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see what happens in the not so distant future. There could be some exciting things to come this year. Let's see here. Aristotle Enjoyer with a super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat, Aristotle Enjoyer. I appreciate that. A great YouTube. Keep it up, my man. I will do my best to keep it up, and I'll try not to get too razzled and dazzled in the YouTube comments. Unless someone tells me, hey, Ocarina of Time 3D, that's a remake. Or no, it is what it is. I'll be like, yeah, you're right. See, I'm ruining my own argument here. I was right the first time. If someone tells me Ocarina of Time 3D is a remake, I will twist and turn. It's a remaster. But thank you very much, Aristotle Enjoyer. I appreciate that. Granddaddy Otaku with a super chat as well. Thank you very much for the super chat, Granddaddy Otaku. I think a remaster remake is still a new version or an updated version of the original source. I love Ocarina, but it has been revisited quite a few times. I'll be happy regardless, but I'd like an OG Legend of Zelda remake or Oracles. And I think, you know, that's a totally valid take. That's a valid take, right? For sure, right? Like if you want to make the argument because something's already been remastered or has had some sort of re-release, then maybe that deteriorates the likelihood of them revisiting something. I totally get it. And maybe, you know, from that perspective, it would be better for them to revisit something that hasn't been revisited. And I definitely see where you're coming from with that. And I think that's going to happen. I actually, you know, I'm between either us getting Wind Waker, Twilight Princess in a collector's pack this year or some type of 2D Zelda game with a strong chance of it being a remake. Like that's my speculation, right? I don't think this theorized Ocarina of Time remake would be coming out this year. I think it would probably be a next year thing, if not beyond that, right? There's room for all of these things. But I'll also point out, right, there are certain things, there are certain games that are revisited more than once for a reason, right? Final Fantasy VII has been revisited multiple times for a reason. It's considered one of the greatest games ever made. Resident Evil 4 has been revisited many times. Why? Because it's considered to be one of the greatest games ever made. Skyrim, one of the greatest games ever made. Ocarina of Time, one of the greatest games ever made. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and I think they should, and I think they will. But also, there are some games that just get revisited more than once. I think Ocarina of Time is one of them. Jens von Broekhoven. It's Broekhoven, right? If I'm butchering your name, please correct me. But thank you for the super chat. And Jen says, "You never know with Nintendo." That is 100% correct. You never know. You never know what those wild minds are cooking up. You never know. They could be cooking up bokoblin elixirs and then making so many of them that they cake together and it obtains sentience and then crawls out of the pot and becomes the new. The Spear of Demise enters this amalgamation of bokoblin elixirs that has now obtained sentience, and it becomes this even more powerful version of. Okay, I'm just on some trip right now. I'm done. I'm sorry. That's just a random idea. Anyways, let me try and catch up with the rest of the chat here. I skipped to the bottom. I want to go back to the earlier parts. Sophia, I think Nintendo's holding Wind Waker and Twilight Princess for the Switch so they can make it 4K or HDR if there isn't 4K. Otherwise, they would have just released them. Just think about it. Wind Waker 4K. So I'll tell you this. Skyward Sword HD is at 60 frames per second, right? I want to see Wind Waker Twilight Princess at 60 frames per second. Upscaling to 4K as well with HDR, whoo, that would be nice. And that would only be possible on Switch 2. 60 FPS would be possible on Switch. There is a possibility that both could happen, though, right? Like, what if Nintendo does release a collector's pack for both this year? And then part of the Switch 2 promotion is that it enhances a lot of games. It upscales games to 4K, right? It does. There's certain things they do with that. And so maybe there is a visually enhanced version of the collector's pack on Switch 2. Maybe it just happens naturally, as we kind of talked about in earlier today's video, or maybe there's a patch of some kind. I'm kind of leaning Switch 1, but I also will concede part of that is just because I wanted it to come out sooner, right? But to your point, though, right? To your point about if they weren't going to do it on Switch, like what if they were going to do it on Switch, why haven't they done it already? And I mean, it's interesting. The initial Andy Robinson tweet about the game, I think, was back in 2021. Let me Google this real quick. Andy Robinson, because he said something like along the lines of them that they're for sure coming. But he said that on Twitter and then had to backtrack on it. Andy Robinson, Wind Waker. I feel like I probably covered this in the video I made about these two games a couple weeks ago, but Wind Waker HD. Let's see. So this was 2 years ago. This is back in 2021. I think. I bet the tweet was deleted. It was, but he did put an update. So the update was June 2021. So at this point, we're what, 2.5 years? Yeah, it's been a little bit, but it hasn't been that long, right? 2.5 years is not that long, right? And so in 2021, we had Skyward Sword HD. That was a Zelda game for 2021. 2022, Tears of the Kingdom was slated for 2022, and it was delayed to May 2023. And so I did kind of wonder why they didn't just put these games into 2022. It is curious. And so I got two theories on it. The one, it's just that, well, they thought they were going to put out the game then, and then as it just happened, it had to be delayed. And so they were just thinking about maybe saving this collector's pack for a little bit later down the road. And because Tears of the Kingdom is such a big, huge release, and it came out May, not that late into 2023, they figured that they didn't absolutely need to have the Zelda release for the year, right? And so that's kind of maybe why they decided not to put any sort of Zelda release there because of Tears of the Kingdom, and so that's maybe why they didn't choose to put the collector's pack. I assume it's collector's pack. It might not be. I think it will be. So maybe that's why. But the other theory is maybe something to what you're saying, Sophia, that maybe they're saving because they want to put like a 4K version for Switch 2. But going back to what I was saying earlier, if they saved Wind Waker Twilight Princess for this year, where we're close to Switch 2 release, it's close enough to coinciding that it falls somewhat within reason that they could throw in a patch or some type of enhancement or have it in mind for Switch 2. Like, that's possible, right? Or even if Wind Waker Twilight Princess comes out next year or what have you. So that's a possibility. Yeah. Now, there is something going on that is leading me to speculate a little bit more that maybe we see them in the Direct. I'm saving it for a little bit later into the stream, right? I want to get through the chat, but yeah, at least I did the Ocarina of Time thing already. You know, I just, that's just an argument. It's not news. It's just, well, it's news in terms of, hey, I noticed this thing from years ago, right? It's not too different from, hey, I noticed this thing from a couple weeks ago, except, you know, years versus weeks or days or hours. Metroid Prime, Nintendo teasing with these colored buttons. I think so, right? Jake Rando, hello, what's up, buddy? How you doing? Santox Games, you're playing the new Yakuza. Interesting. Ricky Lee Norton, I understand people being fatigued of hearing about and talking about Switch 2 before it's been officially announced. But we're all thinking and talking about it so much for a reason. Because we want it. And there's different things popping up that are stirring the pot, causing conversation. And a lot of us are anticipating an announcement soon, right? So we're kind of like, oh, what's next? What's next? I don't really agree with the sentiment of, oh, people are talking about this too much. Let's just, they shouldn't, right? Like, I don't believe in that. Right now, I'm a YouTuber, right? If I did, I think that'd be kind of hypocritical, actually. So, you know, checks out, right? At least I'm fair. You know, I'm consistent. Is the word I was looking for. I think, you know, you talk about what you want, right? YouTube. Let's not forget what YouTube is, right? It's your own personal channel. You put out your own personal content. If you find an audience where people enjoy it, then great. If you see something you don't want to watch, then don't watch it. If you're tired of a particular conversation, then don't listen to it. You know, I would argue, right, that at least on YouTube, while yes, there is the issue of clickbait, right? Like, you see a thumbnail or something and that might make you want to click, and sometimes you click and it's not what you thought. At least you don't see a lot of text, right? Where your brain probably reads it, or at least you don't see like inappropriate videos, you know, without warning usually, right? And so I would argue that I kind of like the YouTube space more in that sense, because if you're trying to avoid certain like conversations or toxic things, it's easier from that perspective, right? If you go on to say like Twitter, you scroll your feed, you see all sorts of stuff. It's there. You're just gonna see it, right? And it's not even necessarily from anyone you follow. It's just shit that comes up, and I hate it. I like Twitter because I you know, there's people on there I follow, and I think it's a good source for information. But then I'll see like someone throwing a grenade into someone's mouth or something disgusting and explicit like that. Like, I haven't actually seen that, right? But I just try to think of something terrible, and I see terrible things. I don't want to go on Twitter to see terrible things, right? And I'm not saying that I'm super squeamish. I'll watch a terror or horror movie. Like, I'm okay with that. Although, on the side note, I don't like movies that are explicit for the sake of being explicit. I prefer movies where there's context behind it, right? So when I'm watching a horror movie, I prefer the horror movies where you don't see that much, right? It's kind of left up for imagination until the end, right? It doesn't have to be the end necessarily. That's just kind of a school of thought. To me, that has more taste, that has more allure. I don't like I haven't seen all the saws, right? So maybe some of the newer saws have changed the formula up, right? But I don't like the idea of watching someone's leg get sawed off with a chainsaw. Like that's I don't want to see that. That's disgusting. Like just to see it and then just to see someone's nails split off. Like I don't like those things, right? So, anyways, I'm tangenting off of a tangent here. Where was I? What was I even talking about? This is the problem. Right. Just the whole notion of, like having these conversations, right? What Ricky Leonard was saying. Yeah, I basically my take is simply, if it's a conversation you don't care for, don't participate. That's what I do. I don't participate. It's that simple, right? I wasn't super big into the whole Gerard completionist pandemic, right? I eventually saw a couple of videos, but I was never going to make a video on it. It didn't particularly interest me. I do think there's important things to take away from that, right? Like we got to be careful about who we donate our money to, and then donating money and doing it promptly and with transparency is obviously very important, right? Like that, those are things that I think the situation definitely really made people more aware of. But like my point is, I didn't care for the controversy and following it up, right? But I see a lot of content creators talking about it. I didn't start complaining, right? I wasn't like, oh man, how you guys just keep talking about this? That's stupid. Like, no, that's what they want to talk about. Let them talk about it. So that's just kind of my perspective on it. Pay attention to what you want. It's that simple. Everyone's entitled to talk about what they like. Let's see here. Robert Kenny. I'm just hoping for either a new trailer and release date for Prime 4 or HD remaster of Prime 4. What? What? You mean a Prime 2? Okay. Prime 2, right? Like that makes sense. Or Prime 2 and 3. Yeah, I'm pulling for some Metroid news in the direct. I think we're getting at least Prime 2. And I definitely think we're seeing Prime 4 this year, and I'm predicting it does come out, but we'll see what actually happens. It could be a 2025 release, but I'm predicting otherwise. Truth Bomb at me. In fairness, the Deku Tree has only appeared in 3 titles. The first title it appeared in was Ocarina of Time, so they easily could have wanted to put Breath of the Wild Deku Tree along with the original Ocarina of Time Deku Tree. So I see what you're saying. Yeah, like I mean, I guess, yeah, that's a fair point. But also, they didn't do the Wind Waker one, right? The Wind Waker one, that's kind of like, that's an important one, especially if they're going to do a Wind Waker HD soon. But of course, that hasn't been announced, So we'll see. We'll see. I think we got to wait until they actually announce it, and we'll see if something is there. Heikel Hires, we need a new top-down. I agree. We do. Granddaddy Otaku almost prefers some of the other Legend of Zelda titles, like an Oracle game remake or even remaking the original Legend of Zelda. It seems to me like these games have been relatively ignored. Recently, the Ubisoft team behind the recent Prince of Persia release, which is pretty good, they've talked about wanting to make a Zelda 2 remake, and I actually really like that idea. Basically, this team that made Prince of Persia, they're pretty much, they're very comparable to the team, the Mercury Steam team, right? And so Mercury Steam actually made a Castlevania game very similar to Metroid Dread and Prince of Persia, and it was okay on 3DS. But it was interesting. Like once they started working with Nintendo with Samus Returns, the quality went way up, right? Like I think that co-development definitely benefited the overall project. And so I could see a scenario where this Ubisoft team, which made a fine Prince of Persia game, right? If they were to work with Nintendo, co-develop a Legend of Zelda 2 like remake spin-off, that would, like a reimagining, that would be extremely cool. I'd be all about that. I think they could do something really special there. And that wouldn't be a top-down Zelda. It would be a Zelda Metroidvania, which would be amazing. Scrolling through the chat here. Okay. Oh, chat jump. I'm lost now. I am lost now. Well, let's get some of the super chats, actually. There's a few more. Boo Mini. I personally would love an Ocarina of Time remake. They could do so much with it to make it feel like a new experience. Yeah. I mean, I think we're in agreement there. They definitely could do a lot. Now, I'm not expecting them to do a lot, right? Because I think ultimately, this is the idea behind this. It's something that they would want to do that would excite fans, bring the Zelda fan base, give them something to kind of chew on in terms of 3D Zelda on Switch 2, while we wait for the next actual Zelda game, right? So, like, I wouldn't imagine that they would have a full-on development team, like the Zelda team, working on this to make a whole bunch of changes. But do I think they can make some notable changes that... Yeah, I think so, right? Like, I honestly, I think we just got to look at how Nintendo handles their remakes. And it varies. It definitely varies. But I would say there's enough remakes we've seen, and even the remasters, right, where they introduce some new content and they make some subtle changes that improve the overall game. Like, I can imagine, getting rid of load screens, for example, a fully controllable camera, all the environments that you can only look at from certain angles. They're fully 3D, fully realized. Maybe they add a few more side quests, maybe another dungeon, like, and some extra story stuff there. Like, I don't think that's an extreme stretch. I think that's maybe like a best case scenario, though. I think if they go and they Breath of the Wild it, I'd be mind blown. I want that. I don't think they're going to do that right now. Could they rebuild Ocarina of Time Remake using the modern Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom engine? Right. That doesn't mean making it full on open air, but could they rebuild it and maybe certain elements we kind of see trickle over, right? Like the physics, for example. Maybe there is a little bit more exploration to be had there, right? There's a little bit more interaction we could have with the world. It feels more like a living, breathing world. Like, that would be really cool. I'm not asking for a giant, massive environment, but they could expand things somewhat in some way in terms of gameplay. And I think there could be something pretty special there. Yeah, I think it'd be cool. Next super chat, Joy CJ. Thank you for the super chat. Joycey just says, just showing some love. Have a great weekend. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend as well. This is like the end of my work week, so it's been good. It's been fun. Sky Swords Alyssa, thank you for the super chat as well. Link from Soul Calibur 2 Enhanced Style or Ocarina of Time? Are you talking about... First off, Link from Soul Calibur 2 looks amazing. Looks amazing, right? And that's kind of like... That is kind of like envisioning a little bit how Link from Ocarina of Time would look with better visuals. I've actually used that link to kind of depict like Ocarina of Time Remake a couple times in thumbnails. It's such a good looking model. Oh, you did say, or you said 4. Yeah, I mean, I think something that looks really cool. Something that I've shared in some of my videos, and I make sure to credit Curiomatic, a really good YouTube channel. They kind of showcased what they envision Ocarina of Time Remake to look like. You just search Curiomatic, like it's Curiomatic, so Curiomatic, Curiomatic. Search that up. It's one of their more popular recent videos, and you'll see how they kind of realized Link in a modern way. And I think they hit it out of the park. Like, to me, that's how Link should look if they were to remake Ocarina of Time like that. I think that's an even better way to do it. I don't hate it in the Soul Calibur 2. I think it looks awesome. But just thinking about, what I think is something Nintendo would actually go in the direction of doing, Curiomatic got it right. Sam Talks Games with a super chat as well. Thank you for the super chat. I very much appreciate that. Sam says, we have an idea of the Switch 2 launch lineup, sorta. But what do we think is coming in 2025? Ocarina of Time Remake, Animal Crossing? So, again, Ocarina of Time Remake is a theory, right? But yeah, I'm kind of predicting that 2025 is when we see it, at least announced. But I think it makes sense for it to come out then, based off the Zelda pattern of getting a remake early on for the system. So I think we're getting Mario Kart. The next Mario Kart, it comes out early 2025, like February, March is when the next Mario Kart comes out, in my opinion. Beyond that, I think we also get maybe something from Monolith Soft. I think that comes. I would be surprised if we don't see some type of Smash update by the end of 2025 as well. I think we need some type of Smash update. Smash Ultimate came out 2018 for Switch that second year. And the thing is, Smash Ultimate came out 2018, right? On 2025, it will have been 7 years. That's a long gap. Now, there is DLC that, definitely makes that gap feel shorter than it is. But still, when did Sora come out? I forget. It's probably... I'm not going to even pretend to guess. I'm just going to look it up. I think it's October 2021. So that was a little over 2 years ago. The final DLC character came out. Of course, we're talking, I'm thinking Smash by the end of 2025, right? So by that point, it will have been 4 years since the last DLC character for Smash. But what's interesting is they started releasing some new spirits for Smash, and Sakurai is ending his YouTube channel, right? So it looks like he's focusing his efforts elsewhere. And we know Bandai Namco has made some hiring. One of them seems like it's for a Smash game. So I feel like Smash is probably in the works. So I would say that there's a good chance we see something Smash related in 2025, right? So, doing Smash, Mario Kart, Ocarina of Time remake, some sort of Mollensoft game. Those are some pretty big titles we can see from Nintendo. Yeah, Animal Crossing, I wonder, because the same team that makes Splatoon makes Animal Crossing, and they're still making the side order DLC now. And Splatoon 3 came not that long ago, right? It's actually kind of wild when I think about it. Splatoon 3 came out summer 2022, so like September or something, right? And yet here we are in 2024. We're gonna get the DLC next month. It's just a little wild. It's a little wild. Yeah, but the Splatoon thing gets me thinking about something here. It gets me thinking about Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD. And you might be wondering, huh? How does Splatoon get you thinking about Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD? Let me explain. Okay? Hear me out. We're getting the Splatoon 3 side order DLC February 22nd, right? Towards the end of the month. And I believe they recently announced a Splatoon concert. Some of you may already have realized where I'm going with this. I just want to double check the day. I think it's like the 9th. All right, I got this article here. So, no, the Zelda concert is the 9th. The Splatoon concert is... They were supposed to be part of Nintendo Live. Where's the Splatoon one? On the 10th. Okay, so there's a Zelda concert happening on the 9th, and there is a Splatoon concert happening on the 10th. Now, suppose they're supposed to be for Nintendo Live, so maybe there's not. Maybe this is me looking too deep into it, right? There's a fantastic chance it's me just looking too deep into it. Let's just make that clear, right? I'm making that clear right now. That said, that doesn't mean they can't readjust their plan and have it make sense in terms of cross promotion. And so it makes sense to have a Splatoon concert right now. Splatoon is still relevant. The DLC is coming out later in the month, right? So having a concert around this time of the year and the DLC makes tons of sense. You want to know what's also interesting about this? We're probably getting a Nintendo Direct in the first or second full week of February, because that's what's happened for the last, for most years throughout the Switch era, right? I'm predicting February 7th, but 14th is another option. What's interesting, though, is that if it's the 7th, The concerts happen just a day or two out later, right? And so we have the Splatoon DLC, right? That's probably gonna be talked about in the direct. That's coming out later in the month. But maybe they want to have something Zelda too. You know, if you got the Zelda concert going, you know, you have people talking about Zelda. Maybe there's gonna be something there. And there is always a Zelda release every year, right? But are we gonna have? Are they gonna really save something Zelda for Switch 2, and it also come out this year, right? If we're getting 3D Mario, if we're getting Metroid Prime 4, is it really realistic for us to expect, say, for example, this theorized Ocarina of Time remake in 2024? I don't think it is, right? Like, they might show it, but I don't think it's coming out this year. And I hope I'm wrong, right? I hope I'm wrong. Like, that Lego set, the Deco Tree Lego set is supposedly coming out September. A lot of people think Switch 2 is coming out September. It's like, yes, the thought crossed my mind, oh, what if Ocarina of Time remakes the Switch 2 launch title? I don't think it is. I think that's very unlikely, but the thought crosses my mind, right? But anyway, I'm just saying, I think there's something to the idea of different events going on for certain game franchises and them coinciding relatively close, or like happening somewhat close to an announcement for that respective series when it comes to games, right? We know about the Splatoon stuff already. It's the DLC. It's well known. But what about Zelda? Tears of the Kingdom came out in May. We're getting close to getting some other type of Zelda announcement, with the assumption we get a Zelda thing almost every year, right? And so if I don't think that they're going to have a major Zelda release this year for Switch 2 because of other things that are happening and they need to spread things out a little bit, then maybe we need something smaller, right? And so that's something smaller. Maybe it's for Switch. And so if it's for Switch, what do we get? Maybe a 2D Zelda. That's possible. Or maybe a collection of Wind Waker, Twilight Princess in a bundle together. And so that's pretty much, that's the thought process. That's it. It's nothing crazier than that. But, you know, I do think that if Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were supposed to come to Switch, and if this is the direct, the last direct that is just about Nintendo Switch before Switch 2 was announced, maybe this is time. They can always still make announcements for Switch after Switch 2 is announced. But this is the last direct that may be focused on Switch. So, you know, it's kind of like this is maybe the last really big chance of getting some type of announcement like this, especially during this time where we're expecting to get a lot of remasters and remakes. And if the Switch 2 is coming out, say, September or October, Nintendo's going to need to fill up that lineup, right? And they may not want to fill it up with brand new titles because they are preparing for the next generation. So what can you do instead that will really excite the fan base, keep them engaged, and have them happy waiting a few more months? I don't know, maybe a collector's pack of 2 games that people have been clamoring for years? That might do the trick. Wind Waker Twilight Princess, they'll probably sell a few million. It'll be good money for Nintendo, and it would work. So that's kind of the thinking behind that, really. That's it. It's not enough for me to like say, oh, I am predicting Wind Waker Twilight Princess will be in the direct. Like, we have a strong, compelling evidence. It's not strong. I don't think it's strong, compelling evidence, right? This is not the Ocarina of Time 3D is a remaster situation, right? It's nothing like that, right? So if someone says they don't think it's happening, there's a really good chance they're right, you know? But I do think they exist, and I do think Nintendo will make a lot of money from them, and I think they will happen. It's just kind of really a question of when, and this is not a bad time to do it. It's a good time to do it. So that's kind of my thought process there. But let's see what you guys have to say. Ronnie Fazio added me. Did you grab the new Smash Bros. Spirits? No. Maybe I should, but the spirits just don't. Spirits aren't that big of a deal for me, so I don't feel like firing it up just for that. However, I do fire up Smash randomly all the time. I enjoy playing Smash because I enjoy playing Smash. And so might I accidentally fire up the game just to do it? And maybe literally you asking me this question will kind of, I might do it this weekend just because, right? Like, that's possible. Connor, hi Andres, how's it going? So do you think this new 3D Kirby game that Hal is working on, do you think it's a new or a sequel for Forgotten Land? If so, what should the story be about? I don't I don't. That's a great question, and I don't have an answer for you. I think that they should definitely be making another game like Forgotten Land. I think they maybe even up the ante a little bit more. What does that mean exactly? I'm not sure. Maybe I mean there is already co-op in it. Just make it, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. I think the basic gameplay style is what you should stick to, though. Story wise, I just don't see anything that happens in Forgotten Land where they need to like have like a direct sequel. Like it might be a direct sequel, but I think it wouldn't matter. I think the story will be self-contained, whatever that is. I maybe I'm just I'm lacking in my Kirby lore here, but my impression of Kirby is like every game is standalone. You know, that's kind of how it is. So while I think from a gameplay perspective, it would be kind of like a sequel. I do think they'll probably do something to mix it up, right? They might add some sort of cool mechanic or what have you. But I don't think I don't have much ideas in the story because I think it'll be just another ground up new story because that's how they usually do it, if I'm not mistaken. For anyone who's maybe better in Kirby lore, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that. I have not played every Kirby game. I will play the next Kirby game if it's a Forgotten Land sequel, though. That's my favorite game ever made. I'm not for the Kirby series. It's really good. It's definitely one of my favorite Switch games. Top 10, easy. Risky Gumiyar. Nintendo desperately need third-party dev support, especially the big AAA ones. I wouldn't use the word desperately, but yeah, they need it. It would help them. I for sure agree with that. And I think we're going to get some more, so I'm happy with that. Nintendo asks me, what's up, Andre? I haven't been to a live stream in a while. I've been enjoying your videos recently. Keep up the good work, man. Thank you. Thank you, Nintendo. Yeah, welcome to the live stream. Happy you're here. Lately with the live streams, I've tried to kind of make them a little bit of their own thing. And so I've been enjoying them. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying them too. $10,000 noodles. It'll be powerful enough to play COD, I guess. They are legally binded to put COD on Nintendo systems now. So we're at least getting Call of Duty. That's a W. Nintendo Prime, hello there. Let's see here. So I'm just gonna put this out, right? I've only been streaming for. We're gonna have a cutoff at 9:30 my time, so that is 24 minutes from now. So throw out your biggest, most interesting questions, and let's drill them out. And I'll try to get to as many as I can. Have I missed any? Oh, there is something else I didn't talk about in terms of Zelda news. So I'll get to that after this super chat. And then I'll just focus on just Q&A for the last 23 minutes. Taker610. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Thoughts of Metroid Prime 4 absent once again in February Direct? If it's absent, all that to me is going to say, okay, we just have to wait for Switch 2. That's it. It not being the February Direct doesn't tell me, oh, it's not coming out this year. Oh, it's canceled. Like, my concern for Metroid Prime 4 will not change in the slightest if we do not see it in the February Direct. Not at all. I know people are going to be upset. People are going to be complaining if it's not there. And I do hope it is there. Don't get me wrong. I am predicting it to be there. But this is like a 51. This is like a 55-45, 60-40, like it really could go either way. And I do think there's going to be an uproar. I think that people are going to be salty, but also people are salty after Directs anyways. A lot of people predict this Direct is going to be kind of dry. I'm not so sure I want to do that. I think sometimes Nintendo does a good job of surprising us when we have low expectations. So that'll be fun, right? Now, expecting Metroid Prime 4, I don't think is a low expectation. I think it's an appropriate expectation given how long we've waited, and that I think the game probably should be shown this year, at least, if not released. But yeah, I think, you know, there will be uproar, but there won't be actually any concern for Metroid Prime 4. Now, if we don't see Metroid Prime 4 by the end of June, I won't be concerned. Maybe I'll be like 1% concerned. You know, like, I don't believe Nintendo's going to screw up Metroid Prime 4. But if they still don't show it after June and the Switch 2 is announced, there's no mention of Metroid Prime 4 at all, then I'll start to get a little worried. But I would just tell myself, well, this is just because they're just being as quiet as they possibly can be until they're like 3 to 6 months away before release. So I'd be a little concerned, but I think it would be mostly just Nintendo being extremely quiet, just because for whatever reason they're positioning it to release later. And I just want to point out, like, we've heard that they've been QA testing the game, right? Like, so I don't think the game is like vaporware or anything like that. I know some people refuse to believe the rumors and even literal job listings that tell us pretty much what's going on with it. Of course, it could be Retro Studios working on another game and not Metroid Prime 4, but that just seems really unlikely. So I would be 1% concerned for the existence of the game and its eventual release if we don't see it by the end of June. Not very concerned, just 1%, right? But I also would be very, very surprised if we don't see it by the end of June. That would be shocking to me. All right, so the other Zelda story thing is that Eiji Aonuma and Shigeru Miyamoto were spotted at Super Nintendo World of Japan in a constructors meeting. There's a group of people in construction outfits. They had the hard hats. There's pictures of them. I'll show you. I'll show you as soon as I find it, because I had it up. Oh, there it is. All right. Okay. Now, where is my... This... I damn... Oh, that's right. I have it over here. All right, so here is a page, right? And then some of you might be like, oh, I guess that guy kind of looks like... It looks 100% like him, right? But just so if there's any doubt, that's a nice up-close photo. And also, who's that? That's 100% Miyamoto. Like, this is Aonuma, this is Miyamoto, standing right by each other. I feel like they're probably good friends. And they're talking, they're visualizing. So that's them, right? And for those that don't know who these people are, Aonuma is the producer of the Legend of Zelda series. Miyamoto is the father of Mario and Zelda and Donkey Kong, and I believe Star Fox and Pikmin, and probably more. He's a big deal, but he does all sorts of things now. Like, for example, having a hand in the Mario movie and also the Zelda movie. So, are there any takeaways with this? Well, there is actually. One cool takeaway is that Aonuma would only be there if there's something Zelda related he should be kind of providing feedback on, or some sort of okay or communication or interpretation. So this hard implies they're putting something Zelda together at the Super Nintendo World, and about damn time. Zelda's extremely important. I am surprised that they went to Donkey Kong before Zelda. It's surprising, but also Donkey Kong, you could argue, is an expansion to Mario, and I'm not upset about it, right? I love Donkey Kong, so I'm glad they're doing it, but it did seem like an odd choice to me. That said, them putting something Zelda together doesn't necessarily mean a whole area. It could be just a ride. There is a rumor that like certain Nintendo IP are getting certain attractions, and actually let me double check that. which ones? I forget. Nintendo World rumor attractions. I saw it. Let's see. Rumor: Luigi's Mansion, Zelda, and Pokemon rides. Ooh, there we go. Yeah, I haven't done too much research on this, but that's what it looks to be. And so, yeah, I mean, if they just put like rides of those, that would be cool, but it would be even cooler. Like, so for Luigi's Mansion, you don't need like a whole area. You just need a mansion, right? You have a mansion, and maybe they have like a little area where you walk in and it's like a spooky, haunted like courtyard, and then you walk into the mansion and it's like a spooky tour with different things going on there, like that. It could just be one really cool building with a courtyard, maybe a backyard. And it would just like something you would explore leisurely. And there's just certain side areas that do cool stuff. Like, you know, maybe they have like a VR game or whatever. Like there's a lot of potential there. Or like even like you hold like an actual vacuum cleaner, and they actually like a little mini game you can play with like augmented reality. That would be really cool. Pokemon deserves its own area. Zelda. I mean, obviously, Zelda has so much material. Zelda's almost like the hardest to imagine how they would go about doing it. Something they should do is definitely have the Master Sword on a pedestal. And so, with that in mind, I think they should have like an area you can explore. Ooh, you know what'd be really cool? So imagine they create a castle town. You walk in, it's like Castle Town. You're exploring, right? Like there's a bazaar, and there's an archery section, right? And there is a path leading up to Hyrule Castle, Ocarina of Time style, right? Hint, hint, remake. Maybe that should happen. It all kind of comes together, but I think it makes a lot of sense. So you can have the courtyard. There's some cool little attractions there, right? And then there's the Temple of Time to one side, so you can go off the Temple of Time. Maybe there is a time travel ride, right? You go into the back, there's a ride, but also there is a stone. There's the Master Sword Stone, and you know, kind of like how they have the Sword in the Stone, Excalibur, right? At Disney, have it at the Hyrule area where you have the Castle Town, you have the Temple of Time, and then you also go to Hyrule Castle, and Castle maybe it's its own ride as well. So you have two rides. You have the Sword in the Stone attraction. You have some mini game areas and restaurants in the Castle Town area, and there you go. I think that's a good Zelda section. That'd be really cool. Maybe they could even add a third attraction where you can like ride horses or something, because you know horses. Maybe it doesn't have to be like literal horses. It could be like maybe more of a something like so you know, like in Majora's Mask, you have to guide. I forget her name, but the Romani girls, right? Because there's Milan, right, from Ocarina of Time, but they use the same model in an older version. Like they use both models as sisters in Majora's Mask. I don't remember their names for Majora's Mask, but you have to guide them in their wagon, and so it would be cool if they did something like that. They also did something like that in Twilight Princess. So something like that would be cool. It could even be like all augmented reality. But some kind of ride like that could even be a third attraction, or just a second attraction, you know. But it would be it if it was a second attraction. I'd be disappointed if I couldn't actually explore Hyrule Castle. So I feel like there would have to be a third ride. Maybe you go to Hyrule Castle, but it's Hyrule Castle from Breath of the Wild, and the ride is riding one of the divine dragons from Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. That'd be cool. Maybe it could even be like a storyline where there's one dragon fighting another, and I'm not going to say anything else beyond that. So, where's the live chat? There it is. I hope you always enjoy the live streams. I'm glad you do. I'm glad I could offer some level of enjoyment for you. Franco Peralta, I feel 2022 was a time for Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD. They delayed Tears, and we had the 3D games on the NSO that year. Yeah, well, we'll see. I understand your point there. I definitely thought that was maybe it too. But just because they didn't come out then doesn't mean they won't come out later. Tink, Andres, what do you think the most realistic estimation of the Switch 2 maximum game size will be? Huh. That's an interesting question. So, are we talking about cartridge size, or are we talking about games that are bigger than cartridge size? Because I feel like there's going to be games bigger than cartridge size the same way they are for Switch, but it's just not as often because I do think the cartridge size would be bigger. I know there's some sort of NAND thing that they might be able to do where they'll have updated cartridges that read faster and I think store more. So that'd be good. I just don't know. I don't know much on this particular topic so I don't feel like I can offer a really good perspective on it. The only thing I could say is that I have to imagine that it would be bigger than what the Switch is. So let me see something here. One moment. I'm trying to look something up. Yeah, so it's the 3D NAND, right? So this could give Nintendo the opportunity to increase the space for the cartridges, but also reduce costs. So that would be a double win there. Win-win. 3D NAND storage space options. I'm not sure. Yeah, I just don't know much about this, right? I'm trying to my only prediction is that it'll be more. It will be more than Switch. Oh, I'm seeing this article here. Micron is filling orders for 232-layer NAND and not to be outdone. SK Hynix announced that it'll begin volume manufacturing 238-layer 512GB triple level. I mean, that seems insane. I don't know what Nintendo would do, right? I don't want to make some kind of assumption that they're going to have 512GB size cartridges. I just don't know enough about this. But I think they got to be bigger. They definitely got to be bigger. At least. I feel like 64 should at least try to hit 64. Let's see here. Oh, another super chat. Let's see if I can get to it. Oh, there we are. Oh, a couple new super chats. Okay. Sick. Thank you for those super chats, everyone. I appreciate it. Jens von Brockhoven. In a time when most companies are struggling, we should thank Nintendo for making good budget titles. Yeah, they keep the content coming, right? It's not all huge, giant things. Though some of those exist, but there's also a lot of smaller stuff as well, right? We're getting our Advance Wars. We got our Advance Wars 1 2 Reboot Camp. We got another Code Recollection, right? Mario Wonder is an awesome game. It's not a giant open world game, but it's a really fun 2D game that a lot of people could enjoy, right? Pikmin 4, Tears of the Kingdom. They had a pretty good amount of variety throughout 2023. I think they did a good job. 2023 is a very good year from Nintendo, and I expect them to continue. We got solid games coming this year in terms of remasters and remakes, and I assume once we get the Direct, it'll fill out a little bit more. It'll feel a bit more varied, and by June, we'll probably be like, "Whoa, this is actually looking like it'll be a pretty darn good year." So, yeah, I agree. Chrono Wig with the super chat as well. Thank you very much for the super chat, Chrono. The merch would be awesome, like Majora's Mask. Oh yeah, we're going back to the Zelda attraction, right? Like, can you imagine like going to the Happy the Happy Mask shop, right? And it's a mask shop. It's a Zelda mask shop. It's literally that's what it is. They have someone maybe dress up as the Happy Mask salesman, or maybe it's like they do the augmented reality thing. You know how Nintendo loves doing their augmented reality. But it would be so cool. I would actually prefer it to be a person just to kind of make it feel more real, like being able to touch and feel the masks, make it feel authentic in that way. But there's so much opportunity. there's so much opportunity there. It's a really good point about the merge, Chrono. Very good point. Frank Parata says that was Epic Universe, not Universal Studios Japan. Did I say Japan? Right, Epic Universe is the Super Nintendo World area. Well, is where Super Nintendo World will be in Japan, right? I mean, not Japan, in Orlando. In Orlando. 4 hours from me. That's where that's where we saw them in the construction. I assume the park is going to be the same, but apparently not. Apparently there might be some differences. Zalato. What do you prefer? That the first trailer of Metroid Prime 4 comes out a few months before release, or 1 year, or even more? Do you prefer to see it now or wait? You say I want to see it. I want to see it. I feel like the game is less than a year away, and so I think we're going to see it. But hypothetically speaking, if the game was further out, I still feel like we should see it. Give us something. Give us something. Like, just do it. That maybe give us something, but be very vocal about how long we have to wait. But I guess the part of it is that once they show it, they want people to see the light at the end of the tunnel. They want to like at least be able to say, hey, it's coming out this year, right? Like at least that. But yes, my vote is see it regardless. And based on what we've heard, they definitely could show us something. Ooh, David Main says, Andres Restart, how do you feel about Power World? So I made a video about Power World on Monday. And so if you guys are curious, you can check out the video. I talk about it. I actually like the game. I don't know if I think I'm done playing it unless I have friends to play it with. And I do actually. So I might play a little bit of it with friends, but I don't imagine doing everything that game has to offer. I beat the tutorial. It took me like 4 or 5 hours, and it was fun. Not extremely fun, but it was fun. When I first started the game, I was actually kind of hyped. Like, oh, feels a little like Breath of the Wild, but there's Pokemon I can catch, but it's actually Arc Survival Evolved gameplay. It's cool. That's kind of what I feel about it. If you're asking me how I feel about the controversy, I mean, I don't really care, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is, Pokemon Company has announced they're going to take a look, right? And so I think they should take a look. And if they find that there's something there that they should sue or take some sort of legal action, then I encourage them to do so. If they do their investigation and they find that it's not really enough, then that's what it is. And it's that simple. So basically my opinion is whatever our legal system decides. That's my take on that stuff, right? And I'm just looking at it from, look, it's not like there is a vetting process, to be made on Steam, right? So, it's made available on Steam for people to play and enjoy. I've played it, I enjoyed it. And if there is an issue, they better take care of it. And I expect they will, if there's an issue. Now, if you want me to give you my take on just like other game companies and developers shamelessly copying ideas, it doesn't bother me in this case. I do think there's a little bit of because this company, right, is like something pair. I forget the name of the developer. Let me look it up real quick so I hopefully remember this time. Pocket Pair, right? They've made other games before that have like Craftopia, right? That feels like a Breath of the Wild clone. Like they have things that look like Lionels and stuff in it, and Bokoblins and Moblins. It's like there's no denying what they did, right? There's no denying it. but I don't think Nintendo pressed charges for Craftopia, right? And so I don't think they're gonna do it for PAL. I mean, they might try. I don't think it's I don't think there's enough there. It's clear that they are heavily inspired amalgamations of Pokemon. There's no denying that, but does that hold them in court? I'm not sure, right? Even if like a smile or an eyeball looks the same, I don't think that's enough. I don't know if you can copyright an eyeball, or a smile. Well, I mean, you could, but I don't think they have for random Pokemon. Anyway, so, this company does it a lot, right? And maybe if there's something that bothers me a little bit about it, is that when I see some people playing this, right, and there's a little bit of there's always like that anti-Nintendo-ness that exists, right, for whatever reason. And so the people that will only play things on PC or the other consoles, they'll never play anything on a Nintendo, right? So the people who've never experienced Breath of the Wild or Pokemon, right, they'll see Craftopia and Power World and be like, oh, well, now I know how Breath of the Wild and Pokemon feel. This is awesome, right? But like, they're not Breath of the Wild, right? They're not Pokemon Legends Arceus, right? They're different experiences that just are made to look similar and have some similar mechanics that are not done as well, but because they combine it with other ideas, they do become their own thing. And so I haven't played Craftopia, but Power World is fun, right? I'm not trying to say Power World isn't fun. It is fun. It's fun. And I think in a way it's become its own thing, even though it feels pretty much like Arc. But when you mix the Pokemon stuff and the Breath of the Wild-ish stuff, it's not unique, but it's its own thing, even though it's clearly stealing or it's heavily inspired by all of them. So that bothers me a little bit, but it's not a big deal. Not to me. Let's see here. Sky Swords Alyssa adds me. Do you want underwater exploration in the next 3D Zelda? I sure do. I'm going to echo what you said. I sure do. I've never disliked underwater exploration. I mean, maybe I disliked it in Ocarina of Time because it was slow. But otherwise I've been fine with it. Now, I know some people have had issues with how movement works. and I'll say, I mean, I usually just figure it out, right? But no, I always figure it out. But have I ever had a minor annoyance underwater in a game? Sure. Has that included maybe Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword? Like barely, right? But I'm sure, for some people, everyone has like different levels of tolerance for wonkiness. So I would hope that with the underwater exploration, they do a good job of making it feel fresh and natural, and maybe they find ways to make it really interesting. Like, for example, Majora's Mask, I love it because you can turn into Zora Link and you can swim around the ocean like a dolphin, and that is so cool. So, if we could get abilities like that to be awesome. Actually, Skyward Sword kind of has some of those dolphin mechanics too. So give me dolphin abilities or Zora dolphin abilities in in the next Zelda. So I'm on Team Underwater. I was on Team Underwater for Tears of the Kingdom. They didn't do that, but they did a lot more. Let's see here. I'm wrapping up here, guys. So put in your final ats and comments. Frank Peralta, Nintendo's left the MySpace alone, the indie title that heavily reused Link's Awakening's HD's assets. There's a lot of games that have reminded me of things, and they let it alone. So, I guess the thing in the case of Power World is that there are some parts of the Pokemon that look like they just kind of like they took the top of Lilligant and put it on top of like Meganium and then stood it upright or something. Like it's like a no, not Meganium. It's like it feels like a fusion of Gudra and Lilligant. And I think it's a cool looking Pokemon. I mean, Pal, but there are some parts that look copy and pasted. And so that's if there's anything that that's maybe why it's maybe more questionable than other entries that clearly are heavy inspirations, but they don't look like they're straight copy and pasted though. Although I'm not an expert on everything that Pocket Pair has done, so maybe they have done more very seeming copy and pastes before. All right, so I see I have another super chat here from Taker610. Thank you for the super chat as well, Taker. Taker says, Switch 2 feels like it's going to be the largest generational leap for Nintendo in quite a while. Switch was like a better Wii U, only portable. You know, I feel the same way. Especially like today we covered that story from Nash Weedle, how he's talking about how he's hearing that, or it's looking like Nintendo wants to kind of market Switch 2 as the system that enhances your games and really makes them look a lot better, has these generational leaps. That's exciting. Like, what are they going to do, right? Like, what if we're right about the Ocarina of Time remake and Nintendo shows us that and how crazy that's going to look? What if Metroid Prime 4 is like a key part of Switch 2 marketing and they want to give us a good Switch version, but they're also going to be like, hey, here's Metroid Prime 4 and it looks insane with the HDR, 4K, with ray tracing. Maybe reduced pop-in, for example, instant loading. It's gonna be insane. 3D Mario. You know, like I made a point during Nintendo Prime's podcast on Wednesday. We were having round 2 of the Switch 2 debate. If you missed it, you know, Switch 2 24 or 25. You guys know I'm on Team 2024. So we brought back on Bo and Tucker and Abram for Backlog Banter. Right, Abram was there for the first time. I met him; he's a cool dude. They're all very cool. I'm friends with them all. I think they're awesome, right? But we engaged with the debate. They're great creators as well, just so you know. So you should definitely watch them. Botox Games, Backlog Banter, definitely check them out. But we had the debate, right? And so something that was argued is that in the lead up to Nintendo Switch, right, like, they had the big game Breath of the Wild, right? Like, even though we didn't know Breath of the Wild was going to be the launch title for Switch, it was at least marketed for a long time leading up to release. Breath of the Wild was. And so they're like, well, there's not really anything like that for Switch 2. And I was like, well, technically, we know about Metroid Prime 4, right? But that's not the point I made, right? My rebuttal was, well, actually, Nintendo has been marketing a really big game for a little while already. And that big game is 3D Mario. The Mario Bros. Movie, I think the Mario Bros. Movie is marketing for Mario games. Like, you look at Nintendo's financials, they document how when the Mario movie came out, Mario games saw a significant boost in sales, or I should say a notable boost in sales. And when I first saw that first Mario movie poster with like the back of Mario seeing the Mushroom Kingdom, even though I know it's a movie poster, I'm not saying the game is going to look like the movie exactly. It's still my first thought was, wow, I really want to explore this world. I wish this was a game. And so I think that's intentional. I do think that this is all like a long-term plan. And so when they finally do show up the next Mario game that's made exclusively for the Switch 2 hardware, we're going to see an incredible leap in technology and Nintendo with their art style and their ingenuity and their ability to maximize hardware. It's going to look so freaking good. It's going to blow our minds. It's going to, I mean it. Like we're in, like, you know, even if Switch 2 doesn't come out this year, which it is, it's like, I so 100% believe it's happening this year. Well, there's no such thing as 100%. I'm in the 98% range. But just so you know how I think, even though I'm 98% confident, there's still that 2% of me that's definitely afraid, right? I guess my point is, like, I account for the 2% possibility is what I'm trying to tell you. This is because of all those years of playing competitive Pokemon, and even though I had a 1% chance of losing, I remember those 1% chance losses that did happen. Anyway, yeah, I think the 3D Mario game is going to blow our minds. And so, yeah, it's exciting to think about what this leap is going to be. I think it's going to be a really special time for us. Yeah, we don't normally see, as Nintendo fans, we don't normally see leaps this big. You know, like the leap from Wii U to Switch was not significant. And the leap from Wii to Wii U was significant, but also Nintendo was still catching up with HD development, so there weren't too many games that took advantage of the Wii hardware. Xenoblade X is probably the best example of taking advantage of the hardware outside of Breath of the Wild, in terms of like just straight like graphical, technical achievement. So yeah, what we're gonna get here is gonna be special, I would say. And with that, I think that's a good point to end things. Although I see if okay, I got a couple more comments. You guys are keeping coming. I'll say this: if there are more super chats, I will continue to read them, right? But I think we're close to ending. I mean, I see I got at least one more, so I'll get to that super chat. But let me read a couple more comments here. Let's see here. Tank. Metro Prime 4 with Cyberpunk 2077 ray tracing. Right. Remember the Xbox Era podcast? They talked about how Metro Prime 4 looks visually unbelievable and the worlds are massive, kind of like Halo Infinite. Man, I can't wait to see Metro Prime 4. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be so beautiful. Here's where we ain't getting a Switch 2. We're getting a new member to the Switch family of systems. If by new member you mean Switch 2 or Switch Next Gen, then yep, you're right. I mean, I think it's all going to be part of the same ecosystem. I think that. I definitely think that. All right, so seemingly the last super chat for the night. Jake Nihaz, thank you for the super chat. I hope I got your last name right. If I didn't, please correct me. But how many new games do we imagine will be at launch? Good question. So Nintendo launched a Switch with just one, Breath of the Wild, and then it had. I mean, there were some smaller games, right? I would say it kind of depends. I think the games are going to come out very quickly afterwards. I wouldn't be shocked if there is just like one game at launch, especially because Switch 2 will be backwards compatible. I believe that, right? A lot of the rumors are supporting that now in the reports, right? So I would say that with backwards compatibility, there's less of a need to have as many games at launch. But I have thrown out the idea of if we don't get 3D Mario as a launch title, and instead I think we would, it's either 3D Mario or Metro Prime 4. But if we do get Metro Prime 4, I feel like from Nintendo, there should be at least one more game. And maybe even if it is 3D Mario, we still have one more game. I feel like we should get that Nintendo Switch Sports, Nintendo Land kind of game. Not 1-2 Switch. That sucked. But something like Nintendo Land, something like Switch Sports would be really good. And I could see that being a day one in conjunction with either 3D Mario or Metro Prime 4. For third parties, that's a tough guess. But I would say there may be a couple eShop things, and the third parties will come quick. Some of them may want to be there day one. Like I know, like Wii U had like a dozen or 20, something around that range. And I guess that's another interesting point because maybe like after the debacle of the Wii U, like after the entire generation, Nintendo didn't have a lot of confidence with third parties, and so they kind of had to earn it back with Switch. Not that they had a lot of confidence after the Wii generation, but now that the Switch has a lot of they've attained a lot of confidence, so there may be several third parties day one. So, yeah, several third parties, one to two Nintendo games. And Jake, I'm seeing here that your last name would be pronounced Niehaus. Niehaus. Jake Niehaus. Got it. I see that. Okay. That makes sense. All right. Well, it looks like we've reached the end of the stream. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I really enjoyed tonight's stream. Thank you for sticking around, guys. And, well, have a good weekend. There will probably be a video on Sunday. I'll put out probably some kind of poll tomorrow to keep the conversation going. I've been trying to do that, but that's all. I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.